again, everyone. I am here today with another new to me fountain pen, and this time it is this Opus 88 Koloro in the clear Demonstrator. So I've been wanting to get this for a while. Ever since I got this one, the Opus 88 Picnic, I wanted to get an Opus 88 with a bold nib or broad nib. And I had been wanting to get a Demonstrator. Looks like I already have ink on myself. All of the models that come in this Demonstrator version, there's one that's a little bit more rounded in shape, and I forget what the model name is of that one. But they're all fairly big, including this one, and it has a little bit of a bigger nib size. I think this might be a size 6 nib. Yeah, I believe so. And this is a broad. And the other one was a size 5, and actually I did want to do an update on this one. I'm not sure if I've done an update on this recently. So, okay, so I do have some paper over here in my Tomoe River A5 notebook that I've been doing tests on, and I'll show you here in a minute. So with this one, I have been nothing but happy with it. It writes fantastic. In fact, the pen itself is so great at delivering ink to the nib that I actually replaced the nib on this one with one of my Franklin Christoph S.I.G nibs because I was having problems with ink flow on this pen, which is it's becoming a multi-pen video, with this pen, which is the Esterbrook Jr. Pocket. And I had that S.I.G nib on this one, and I was having a little bit of trouble with ink flow. So I switched these nibs. I actually put the Opus 88 nib on the Esterbrook, which is kind of nice to know that these are all interchangeable. I did not have to pull the nib out of its housing. You just unscrew the nib unit itself, and it's interchangeable, which is really nice. One thing that I did notice on here, though, underneath the nib unit, there's a little washer, and you have to make sure that stays in here. So I removed that washer from the nib unit, put it back in here when I put the new nib in. So I'll show you, actually, before I get to filling and testing this one, this Esterbrook with the Opus 88 nib, which is a great nib, and I have been really, really happy with it. Let's go ahead and let's go here. So I love this pen. I love the pen design. It feels really nice in my hand, but like I said, I was having trouble, and it's been sitting for a little while, so that little hard start there is normal. It gets so dry in Denver in the winter, in Colorado. Just because, I mean, everything dries out no matter where you have it. So I'm actually surprised that this is working well. So this nib is now buttery smooth and is on here. My only lament is that this is silver in color, whereas the original nib was gold in color. But now I have a great pen with a great nib, this Opus 88 nib. It's a medium, and it works great. I think I have Great Southern Ocean by Robert Oster in here, which is also a really beautiful ink. I actually thought about putting that in this clear Demonstrator, but I decided on a different ink, which I'll show you here in a minute. But like I said, so when I swapped out the nibs, I put a paper towel over the nib and I twisted it, you know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so lefty-loosey, to get the nib unit out. And it's about this long, and it has a little dark part below. And it was absolutely interchangeable with this Opus 88 Picnic. It would not be interchangeable with this because I believe that this has a size 6 nib, which is larger. This is a size 5. So now this has the Opus 88 nib, which is lovely. I'm just going to go ahead and put that off to the side. That's the only time you're going to see that one. And I am going to show you what the Opus 88 with this broad S.I.G nib in a size 5 looks like. I'll show you the nib up close. I think I've already profiled this nib on the channel when I was having trouble with it in the other pen. Okay, so we're going here. And the ink flow is, I do have the back end screwed out a little bit so that the ink will flow into the nib. There's still a little bit of a hard start, but I have not had nearly as many issues with the nib in this pen, and I think that's probably where it is going to stay. And because it is so uses so much ink, it's really quite a good pen to have it in because this has such a large reservoir. And I believe that I have Ackerman's SBRE Brown in here, I think. So that's working really well. And also I've noticed that, so if I hold the nib like this, you get a broader line. If you hold it to the side, you're going to get a narrower line. But see, other than just, you know, a little bit of hard starting, it has not had the issues that it had on the other pen. And given that, I've really kind of determined that it's probably the ink flow, that it has a skimpier ink flow on that pen, whereas this one allows the ink to go more smoothly if I have this back end unscrewed. So both this and the new one here, which is really what this video is about, are dropper fill pens. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this one for you today. It comes with this little dropper, and I've decided to fill it with this Quasar ink by Colorverse. So this is kind of a comical bottle of ink, in my opinion. And I'm actually not going to be using this dropper. I'm going to be using a little pipette here, which I do have actually a little bit of ink in, or water up here, but I think it's clean enough that it won't interfere. But I'm going to use this because I don't think that will actually fit into the opening of this bottle. So basically this was to fill out an order, because these little bottles are really inexpensive, less than $5. And this was a color that I wanted to try, and you know, I saw that it was 5 milliliters, but I don't think I really put together how small the bottle really is. And I'm actually wondering if this bottle will be enough to fill this reservoir. I think so, because it's actually probably deceptive as to how much is actually in here. So I'm going to use this Quasar by Colorverse to put in here, but like I said, instead of using the dropper that came with it, which I would normally use out of a normal bottle of ink, I am going to use this pipette. So let's see. So I've already kind of shaken that around. I'm going to open up this bottle a little bit. So if you do get one of these small bottles, you can see it is the opening is super, super tiny. Unless you had the most micro of fountain pens, you would not be able to fit I'm sorry, I'm thinking as I'm looking at this, you would not be able to fit the nib down in here. One of the reasons why I'm thinking while I'm looking at this is that this is a really staining ink, and I'm actually wondering if I want to change my mind and go back to my original idea. I'm going to change on the fly, you guys. Change my original idea and actually put this ink in a different pen, because I don't want the inside to get completely stained. Yeah, okay, so I am going to do that. I will do a different video where I fill a different pen with this, and it will always have to be something that will work with a dropper. I probably, actually, I wonder if I could put a converter in here. I probably could, so maybe I'll just do that and fill a converter from the bottle. But as you can see, it's really a highly staining ink. I could see a whole lot of sheen and staining up at the top of the bottle, and that's kind of why when I opened this, I really decided maybe not, because I don't want to have a really hard time cleaning this out. So I do have Great Southern Ocean over here on the side of my desk. This is what happens when I don't want to edit, so I just I just keep going and then change my mind on the fly here. So I am going to do this Great Southern Ocean instead, and I actually will go ahead and use the original dropper. One thing with the dropper is you need to make sure that you clean it out right away so that it doesn't get stained or ink gets stuck in it, so that you can continue to use it with a different ink next time. So let's see. Okay, so now I am going to open this bottle, and although this is a beautiful color, it is not as staining. And this is something that just kind of comes with practice from looking at inks. I can just tell that this one is not as staining, even though it's pretty dark, than this one. And I think it's probably because of the sheen. Inks with sheen tend to stain a little bit more, I think. And this one, I mean, it has a little bit of sheen, but it's not overwhelming. So I'm going to go ahead and take the cap off of this, and this has a beautiful bold nib. And then I'm also going to take the top part off here, just unscrew that. And let's see, oh, it looks like I can just pour right in there. So I'm going to keep this upright so that I don't spill it. And then I'm going to put some ink up into this dropper. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to actually put the ink in the rubber part. And I'm trying to be a little bit careful so that it doesn't overflow, because it does have a little regulator here, a rubber regulator right there. So if I did it too fast, it probably would overflow. And let's see, so this is working well. I think I'm probably going to have 3 or 4 dropperfuls eventually. Yeah, and now that I'm looking at this ink, it probably is going to be a little staining, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as the other one. Plus, this is a beautiful ink, and if I have to put this ink in here forever, I'd be completely happy with that. Okay, probably just a little bit more. Okay. So I'm going to get the rest of that ink out into the bottle. I'm going to get my kind of dirty paper towel here and put that dropper on it. So now I'm going to go ahead and screw the nib unit back on. It was pretty tight in the beginning, but it does have a little washer in between. So I'm going to put that all the way on. And I'm not going to post this because this is kind of a comically large pen, even without it being posted. I think that if I posted it, it would just be way, way too big. And I'm not even sure if you can post it. No, you actually cannot. So that's something good to know. But I think that this size, like this, is a good size. I am going to open this little valve here in the back. When you unscrew this part, it lifts up that little stopper thing that was there when we were filling this with ink, and it allows the ink to flow down into the nib. So this may take just a little while to get it to go down into the nib. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close this and leave it upside down for a second while I clean out my dropper. And the nice thing is, because it has a flat bottom, I can store it like that and let the ink go down into the nib. So let's see. I want to make sure I am not leaving any of this. And actually, it's cleaning out pretty easily. I do not think that would have been the case. Like, this is just with a couple of squirts of water in and out. I don't think that it would have been this easy with the other ink. So I feel kind of good about making that ink change last minute there. Okay. So I am drying out the little dropper. I'm gonna put some in there and do a little bit of a shake so that I can get out any last remaining staining ink in there. And I think we're pretty good on that dropper. Looks like there might be a tiny little dot in there. I don't know how that happened. All right, but other than that, I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and let that dropper air out. That's been sitting upside down, so let's see if it's made any progress towards the nib here. The ink, I mean. Okay, no, not yet. And when I did this on the channel with the other Opus 88, I did end up putting into water, so I think I will do that just quickly to try and get it going a little bit faster. So I'd be really interested to hear, those of you that do, have lots of fountain pen inks and pens, how you make the decision as to what ink to put in what pen. Do you try to coordinate with the pen? Do you just have some favorite inks that you like to use? What really goes into your decision as to what ink is going to go in what pen? For me, I try to coordinate as much as possible, but something like this, which is a clear demonstrator, you really could put anything in it. And I am still trying to get that to flow to the nib, and it is taking a little while. Yeah, we're still like nowhere near. Okay, You're not really supposed to shake your pens, but I'm doing that just a little. And I can actually see the ink flowing down through here. You can sort of see here. So let's just give it another minute. But like I said, I try to match my pen's color to the ink. But sometimes, you know, I'll do something that's coordinating or something that I think just looks good with it. And there's so many pretty inks out there that to a certain extent it's a little bit tough to decide what inks to put in there. And Colorverse is one that I have not used a lot of. And the one that I have is a rather new one called Dirty Red. And that one I've really, really liked. So I wanted to branch out. And this is just really not coming down to the nib. What I may need to do is do an edit here. And then once it is flowing, I can kind of tell you how long it took. And we'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here and then come back when the ink is flowing. All right, so I'm back here and it's starting to get going. What I ended up having to do was I unscrewed this and screwed it back in and unscrewed it and screwed it back in a couple of times. And I think, I mean, this is just my assumption. My assumption is that when that lifts up and then when it goes back down, it actually pushes a little bit of the ink down into the nib. So I did that a few times, I would say maybe 3 times, and that definitely started to get the pen going. I had some water in the nib from when I had dipped it in the water, and so the ink was a little bit dilute up here. But now it is starting to get back to the normal color of this Great Southern Ocean ink, which is lovely. And this nib is also lovely. I am really, really happy with it. It's bold, but it's not too crazy bold. I mean, I definitely have some broad nibs that are quite a bit broader than that. So let's go ahead and indicate what this is. So this is the Opus 88. I think it's Koloro. I think that's how you spell it. Clear Demo with a bold nib. And the ink that we have in here is Robert Oster, Great Southern Ocean. I think it's still looking a little bit lighter than it will ultimately, but you know, this thing holds so much ink that it's going to be not a problem, I think. And let's see. Okay, so let's do the Quick Fox. The Quick Fox. So I would say that this is a pretty stiff nib. When I write with it, it really has no flex whatsoever. It's really going to stay in one place. But it is very, very smooth. And that is very nice. You're not going to get any variation really from side to side and up and down. It's going to be the same. And yeah, this is a lovely ink to have in here. I really like the darkness that this adds to the Demonstrator. So I'm actually screwing back the end piece here. This, oh yeah, and see, it definitely did that. It definitely pushed some of the ink down into the nib, because when I just did that, the ink got darker, which means to me that it pushed more ink through the nib. I suppose that you could also replace this particular nib unit with another size 6 nib unit. Not all pens are equally compatible with each other as far as nibs go. You could, if there was not, if you had another size 6 nib that that you wanted to put in here and it didn't fit with the nib unit itself, you could take the pen out of its, or the nib out of its friction fit, which I've never done on the channel, basically I'm just going to tell you that you can do it at this point. I'm not going to show you, but I don't know that you would ever really want to replace this nib. It is a beautiful, beautiful nib. It seems to keep up. The feed seems to keep up. It's really, really beautiful. I love it. Okay, so this is a great new addition to my collection. It actually feels really nice in my hand, even though it is somewhat heavy, especially with the added weight of the ink. But with it unposted, it actually feels quite nice. I have found that I tend to like a little bit of a heavier pen, and this, like, I don't even have to have my thumb on that, and that is going to stay in my hand. That's kind of how I like the weight of my pen to be. The grip section is really nice and comfortable. It's smooth. There's no hard edges that you're rubbing your fingers against. If you went really, really, if you're one of those people that writes really, really close to the nib, you might have a little bit of an issue with this little ridge here, but it's really not that pronounced. And got a little bit of a hard start there. I do have the back closed, so this really just has the ink now that's in the feed area, because otherwise, because this reservoir is now closed off. But this is lovely. I am definitely going to be doing some writing with this. I've had some issues with paper lately that I think I'm going to do a whole separate video on it. I tried to stray a little bit from my beloved Tomoe River paper, and it was just basically a lousy experience with fountain pens. I was just really not happy with it, and I was like, why? Why are you doing this to me? But anyway, that is the subject for a different video. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. I hope to see you next time, and in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.